Welcome to the Inclusive Growth Show with Toby Milden. Future-proofing your business by creating a diverse workplace.
Hey there, thank you ever so much for tuning into this episode of the Inclusive Growth Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be meeting Jaron. Jaron is the chief exec of an app called Voda, and Voda specializes in supporting LGBTQIA plus folk with their mental health. So we're going to be learning about the app and mental health within the LGBTQIA plus community. So, Jaron, it's wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me on the podcast. We'll be really excited to be here.
You're welcome. So, let's dive straight in. I mean, as the chief exec of Voda, can you just tell us a bit more about this innovative LGBTQIA plus mental health app, please?
Yes. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jaron. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm co-founder of Voda, the LGBT mental health app. So Voda is a mental health app that is designed by and for the LGBT community. So this means we do different things differently from other apps. We cover topics tailored to the LGBT lived experience. So this includes things like coming out, gender dysphoria, dealing with shame, stigma, and discrimination, but also everyday life from a queer lens. So we have a series of guided therapy programs on, for example, queer relationships that other apps wouldn't have. So we look at relationships through topics such as exploring jealousy in open relationships, exploring polyamorous relationships, or even a dating app series that, explores the challenges of dating as a gay man or lesbian, bisexual women, or as trans and non-gender non-conforming person, because we all face different issues when we're dating that's very different from cis-normative and heteronormative relationships. So yeah, that's what we do. We provide mental health support for LGBT people created by LGBT therapists. It's not therapy in a sense that on Voda, you don't get to book a therapist to speak to. And we also don't have an AI chatbot, but we have programs that, teach you therapeutic skills that you would have learned in therapy otherwise. The reason for that is we don't aim to replace a professional therapeutic relationship, even though we use AI in the app to personalize the app to you. But all of our programs are evidence-based and they're also intersectional in nature.
That sounds really cool. So, I mean, how did you arrive in this space? And why did you choose to do this?
I think I was really frustrated with the lack of options in the mental health space for people like myself. So a little bit about my founding story for Voda. So my founding story for Voda is very much related to my coming out story and my background. So I have been in London now for the last 10 years, but I grew up in very sunny, very conservative Singapore for most of my younger life. I came to the UK at 21 for my undergrad, but I grew up in Singapore where I knew I was gay from a very young age and was bullied in school as well, I think, for being quite feminine. And so struggled a lot with queer shame and with my identity. It was when I came to London that I had a first taste of kind of not having to look over my shoulder, of being worried about being found out as I started going to queer venues and, started stepping into who I was. But in my mid to late 20s, I started going to therapy because I was struggling a lot with dysfunctional relationships with work in a romantic sense and also with myself. And when I was kind of wrapping up therapy and thinking, okay, I'm going to shift to a mental health app to use, I realized all the apps out there didn't understand who I was. Like I was using apps like Calm or Headspace.
Yeah.
Or even those apps assume you are cis-normative, heteronormative. The examples that they use in their guided meditations or in their, cognitive journaling exercises are often very much tailored for people not like myself. So I couldn't really resonate with it at all. And so I built something that I thought, people in my community needed because I was seeing my friends struggle with the same things. I think a lot of us, when we have unhealed, trauma, like big T trauma or little T trauma, we tend to distract ourselves.
Yeah.
So that could be through, alcohol, substances, work, relationships, friendships, and so on, I wanted to build a more accessible alternative for people like me in the UK and beyond, actually.
That sounds really good. Yeah, because I'm a gay man as well, so I wish the app was around when I came out. So I came out when I was 29, 30. So yeah, it would have been really helpful. And you're right. A lot of the kind of the mainstream therapies or the apps are they're not tailored to the experience of LGBTQ plus folk. So it's great that you can provide that, that tailored experience. I mean, I've heard you previously say that you're passionate for the point where design and impact meets technology. Could you just explain to us a bit about why design and impact and tech are so important to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they all need to come together, design, impact, and tech. So I see that as being related to also why I started Voda, in a sense of there's this Japanese concept of ikigai, which is, I think there's like 4 circles and four spheres of doing something that you love, that you're good at, that you can make money with, and something that the world needs. And that to me is very much why, I see Voda as not just building something that I think can help the world, but also something that really fulfills me. And I have the right experience to build it. So I come from a consumer design background. So this is my 3rd company. My first company was an artisan goods company. So I used to design products with handicraft makers across the majority world, across the Middle East, across Southeast Asia. And so I have that design lens to build something, I think, beautiful, which people could identify with. I think with consumer apps, it's so important to build something that's not just powerful, but also aesthetically pleasing. And so then, it really resonates with the users using it and appeals to them to want to start using it in the first place. But it's also very important to be intentional as well. So from the impact sense or in the inclusive sense, we've made a very careful approach in the way we design Voda, in that we're not just going to put rainbows everywhere on the app because it's an LGBT app. I tap into my own experience growing up, because I came out quite late as well to my family. I came out at 28 to my mom and dad. And I came out because I wanted to start this company, but that's another story. But with the design element is so important for us to be discreet as well, because we want Voda to sit elegantly in your phone, but not raise eyebrows. If someone saw an app called Voda, they're not just going to be like, oh, are you LGBT? Are you gay? Because I went through so much of that from my younger years, where I was, averting my eyes from looking at men. I was in my phone, on Instagram or social media, very careful not to follow anyone that was LGBT. I remember, when we used to use Facebook, I would be like telling some LGBT friends, like, can you not wish me happy birthday, please? Because I don't want it on my profile. So in a sense, we've kind of, when we combine all 3 angles of design, impact, and tech, we can then build meaningful technology that understands the lived experience of the people. Not that there should be any shame, of course, with being LGBT, but I wanted to be very careful, because I knew that from speaking to users, a lot of people that use Voda, they are exploring who they are for the first time. And they're exploring issues that they might not even bring up in therapy in the first place, because they might not think that they need therapy, or they might not be in a good position to go to therapy. They might not be able to afford therapy, but also many queer people still live at home with their families. And so you can't really do a Zoom call with a therapist to explore who you are, because someone might overhear you. And so, that's how all these different, I think, the points come together. And then that's how I think Voda is created.
Yeah, I really like how you've been really sensitive in the design of the app, and you're taking into account how people are using it, their privacy. Like you say, if somebody is exploring their sexuality and their identity, it can be a really tricky time for them. And like you say, you don't want somebody flicking through your phone and then sort of questioning why you've got this app that's covered in, the LGBTQ plus colors, because that could out you in a very uncomfortable way. what's some of the impact that you're noticing that Voda is having?
So I think both qualitatively and quantitatively. So right now we serve, I think now close to 13,000 LGBT people around the world who use Voda regularly. And the impact we've seen those are in the UK and the US. And I think, and we get a lot of qualitative feedback from users. So after you do a program Voda, you can send in feedback to us. And that comes straight to our company communications platform, which is called Slack. And so, it's really been heartening to hear from users on how Voda has helped them feel better, navigate heartbreak, navigate difficult headlines, especially for trans and gender non-conforming people. It's such a difficult climate because I think a lot of us in the queer community, we try to brush things off when things happen to us, like we're on the street holding hands with a date, and then, some young lads could like shout at us or make offhand comments. Most of us try to brush it off. Or, if you're trans, non-binary, and you're reading all these different news headlines and acting like, oh yeah, they're just being transphobic. It really affects us so much. And if we don't, I think, proactively work on our mental health, it can really get us down into a very low mood without us realizing over time. And so for Voda to be able to be that source of support for, our community has been really great to see. And yeah, but apart from the qualitative feedback, we've also had good results from initial small study. So we had some users opt into a small study where after they use Voda regularly over 4 weeks, we also ask them every week different questions. And these questions are based on the clinical indicators for depression and anxiety, which is called the GAD-7 and PHQ-9. And what we saw was a really clear downward trend in the reduction of symptoms of anxiety and depression. So yeah, that's the impact we've had so far on the user side. But also equally heartening is that we've closed our first investment round just last month. And we've announced it, and the funding news was picked up by a lot of the LGBT press, like Attitude magazine, and Pink News wants to write something about us as well. And I'm also really glad that our investors are representative of our community. So we have, I think, 16 investors in our recent round, and they are, gay, lesbian, bi, asexual. We have trans investor on board, and with people who are neurodivergent on board as well. So that everything really, really makes me happy to see that the community is supporting the community, and I think helps set us up for success in the long term as well, because I think the company can continue to be impact focused because our backers have an alignment with the mission of what we're trying to do in the first place. And that's why, beyond recognizing that there is a massive need for something like Voda in the market to provide affordable mental health care, a lot of our investors like ourselves have grew up with shame and felt so alone and lonely at times. And that's why they came on board with Voda.
It's really great that you've got that round of funding, which is quite a nice link to my next question, which is what is your aspirations and objectives for the future for Voda? If you're enjoying this episode and looking to boost equity, inclusion, and diversity in your organization, then my team and I are here to help you. Our team specializes in crafting data-driven strategies, developing inclusive leaders, designing fair recruitment processes, and enhancing disability confidence. With a blend of professional expertise and lived experience, we're ready to support you on your journey. Please reach out to us anytime through our website at milden.co.uk. Now back to the interview.
So the main goal we say is we want to reach 7 million queer people in the next 5 years and provide them with tailored mental health support that understands who they are, but in a way that is discreet and affordable. Our hope is to reach a global audience, but also being very mindful of safety and privacy concerns in regions where being LGBT is criminalized. So now most of our users are based in, say, the US and the UK. and also in some of the English-speaking countries. We want to be, but we're also quite mindful that, there's a lot of people here that require mental health support, even though things are supposedly better in our cities and in the States. But I think the greatest need for Voda often are in places where being LGBT is criminalized. So for us, it's understanding how can we have a version of the app, or how can we invest in the mental well-being of people in those regions while being very mindful of safety and privacy and human rights concerns. And alongside our aim of reaching queer people in the next 5 years, 7 million in the next 5 years, we also want to invest our profits into activism, to legalize homosexuality, to invest in activists that are pushing for marriage equality, and also to support, join the fight against transphobia. I think that now there is a rising tide of transphobia, and it's for some reason there's a lot of the funding coming from Christian fundamentalism organizations that are making lives for our trans communities and siblings really bad. So Voda, we want to be the opposing force to that, because I think one thing that I found very unfair with Voda and the whole, ecosystem of mental health and capitalism is that, first of all, like, the mental health industry makes more money the more unwell you are. That to me just doesn't really sit well, right? And secondly, why are we always making queer people and women in general self-regulate and heal and practice self-care? Can we reduce and remove the sources of trauma and stigma that are causing us to self-regulate in the first place? That to me is something that we want to balance. And I think it's very much in line with the impact we want to have. So yeah, for Voda, we are starting to do more community-based events. We want to start investing in activists across the globe that are fighting for marriage equality, fighting to legalize the freedom to love, to be who we are. Yeah. And lastly, also, I think conduct more studies on Voda's impact. So, our aim is to be your digital mental health companion, such that anyone LGBT thinks of Voda whenever they feel like they need some support. But our aim is not to replace social connection. So we're not trying to build some apps. What they're doing is they're trying to replace social connection. They're trying to give you a fake therapist or a fake boyfriend, girlfriend, or day friend, or whatever they call it, and trying to make you stick to the app by having this forced, loving or trusting relationship with an AI. And that's not what we're doing at all. So we do use AI in the app, but we use it in very, very controlled ways. It's a one in, one out system, in the sense that you enter what you're going through and you get a therapeutic exercise only. You don't get to have a chit chat with Voda. And I think, you can have your chit chats with your friends, because I think social connections are so important for our mental health, but we don't want to, emulate a social connection within the app itself, because I think that, could improve the bottom line, in the sense that, some apps are doing that because people stick to the app and become dependent on the app. That's not what we want to do at all. We want to give you the tools and the skills so you can engage in the communities of your choice.
That's really cool. Have you got any plans to form partnerships with companies and employers? Because I was thinking that the vast majority of people that listen to this podcast work in HR, or they're diversity and inclusion practitioners, and a lot of employers have LGBTQ plus employee resource groups, or they provide support to employees through employee assistance programs. And so it just struck me that actually you've got a great tool to support LGBTQ folk within businesses.
Yes, that's very much not short-term aims. Actually, we have not yet started working on the business-to-business side, but we have had quite a few inbounds. So Ogilvy, I think they are PR marketing. One of the leads reached out asking if they could buy some codes for the employees on a bulk purchase. We had Citi last year reached out after we did a Pride event with them as well. So definitely we're very keen to collaborate with corporates and employers so they could better support their employees. We have a Pride at Work series, which is about, helping people cope with stress at work. So a lot of things about overthinking at work and so on, but also find the alignment between the identity and the workspace. Meaning, a lot of LGBT people go back in the closet after they start work, not necessarily because it has a homophobic culture or queerphobic culture, but then there's so much like hidden, like people were like, well, if this could hurt my career, then I maybe don't talk about it at work at all. But I think it's so important to show up as our full selves at work. And that's why we have a therapeutic series that explores that. But ultimately, affirm that the decision to come out, whether you wish to or not, is yours. But I've been there myself in the sense that I've been in my previous funded company when people misassumed that I had like a partner, like a girlfriend or a wife, or because I wore a shirt that says dad to work as a joke, like funny shirt that says dad, and then started asking me about my kids and my wife. And I just didn't really correct people for a while, and just went on for a while. It was so awkward for some time. I found I was actually okay. Anyway, yeah. So I think we're keen to collaborate with corporates and employees. We're also starting to do a lot of collaborations with charities. So we want to make the brand and Voda feel more intersectional. And so what we're doing is we are scaling by now, apart from just being a digital app, doing in-person events that gives back to the communities, but intersectional communities. So we're announcing, actually, I think this week or next week, we're doing free monthly group therapy at Queer Britain, which is the UK, National LGBT Museum. And we're doing it for different communities. So we're starting with Southeast Asian communities like myself, but we want to start working with, the Black community, people from working class backgrounds, migrant communities, people who are neurodivergent, people who are, differently abled and so on. So we can hold reflective spaces and intersectional spaces because, even though a lot of us in the LGBT community are linked by the common thread of shame, we still experience very different experiences within our respective spheres or the intersecting spheres of our identities. And that's what, we want to do to collaborate with organizations.
I think that's really powerful. Now, the penultimate question that I ask everybody is, what does inclusive growth mean to you?
I think inclusive growth means growth that aligns with your company values. And I think it's very important early on to identify what your company values are. For our end, when we started, we knew we wanted to be a company that gives back to the community, that are based on intersectionality, that is based on impact. And so that then guides all of our decision-making process, even from raising investments. We have stopped conversations with investors early on with that, which we can see are just purely profit focused. So they'll be like, well, yeah, you can collect all this data and then sell this data and do this and that. And to us, it's like, we're not in the business of running ads on Voda. We're not in the business of trying to get user data and sell them. We're in the business of creating mental health support that people want to pay for, and then they pay for that mental health support that's been created by people like that. But I think it's so important to have that value schema early on, so you know what you can say no to. And I think a lot of organizations, in the pursuit of just pure profit-driven growth, forget what the values of the company might be or what mission it purports to have. Because when you have your values out and proud, you then attract the right kind of investors on board as well. So, our investors include a impact investor, called Ultra, and also a trust that invests in companies that improve the health and well-being of people in the UK, but also improve education outcomes in the UK. There are a lot of, I think, if you're looking for investors to fuel your growth, there are investors out there that will be aligned with what you want to do. So you don't have to just, get money from wherever and whichever sources. You can be a bit more selective, though it does take more time. Yes. So I think inclusive growth to me means growth that aligns with your company values. And for us, it's the founding team's values. And that's because all three of us in the founding team are queer. We all had different experiences growing up queer. I grew up in Singapore. My co-founder is Scottish and grew up under Section 28. Our lead therapist is trans, non-binary, and had to come up twice. But then when he came out as trans while working in the NHS as a therapist, it was like they made the decision to leave and start their own practice so they could improve the entire system. And so, yeah, I think growth that aligns with your company values, but also finding, if it's just starting out, finding co-founders that have similar values and ending aspirations for the company.
That's really cool. I love how you're linking it back to the core values and how you're actually growing your own business in line with your own values. So if an investor doesn't align, then that's not a good partnership for you. Now, the final question is, if the person listening to us right now would like to use the app, or maybe they would like to recommend it to a friend, family, or colleague, what should they do?
Yes. So, if you're listening in and you're part of the LGBT community, or if you know someone part of the LGBT community, we'd love for you to try out Voda. So you can download Voda at voda.co, voda.co. We're available on both iOS and Android. We are a freemium app, so we got a bunch of features for free, but we do charge a small fee for all the features. That helps a very small team, but we always provide free. We never want cost to be the reason why someone can't afford mental health support. So if you can't afford Voda, you can always write in to us at hello@voda.co, and we'll turn it on for you. We also reply to every single piece of feedback. So if you write in to our email, I will get back to you. This is part of the reason why we've been able to grow quite quickly, but also introduce things in the app that make us more and more inclusive. So our app recently started catering for different neurotypes because of users writing in the sense that, hey, I can't visualize things in my head. I aphantasia, which is, I think, you basically, if you close your eyes trying to think of something like a red apple, you can actually see a red apple in your mind's eye. So this user was very frustrated that we kept recommending them to visualize something. They're like, well, I can't do that. And so we took that into account. We added it in within a week, and we're very happy. So I think, my call to action is download the app. We'd love to hear from you. If you can pay, please do. You help to subsidize our free users. If you can't, write in and we'll turn it on for you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jaron. It's been really great to catch up with you. And I'm so thankful that you've developed an app to support the mental health and well-being of our LGBTQ plus community. So thanks for doing all that hard work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Toby. I'm so glad to be on the podcast, and thank you for the invitation.
You're very welcome. And thank you for choosing to tune into this episode of the podcast with Jaron and myself. Hopefully you've learned something about the mental health and well-being of the LGBTQ plus community and have taken away some hints and tips on how to support people's mental health and well-being. And obviously the first thing to do is to go and download the app from voda.co if you feel that the app could help you or help somebody in your life. Until the next time, thanks ever so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode, which will be coming up very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Inclusive Growth Show. For further information and resources from Toby and his team, head on over to our website at milden.co.uk.